All right. Hello, everyone. This is Mallory Flowers on behalf of Jennifer Schaus and Associates. We are coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Welcome to our Webinar Wednesday series. All our webinars are held every Wednesday in 2018 at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and our speakers range from accountants to attorneys and other industry professionals. The full schedule for the rest of the year is on our website underneath the webinar tab. Just a few reminders. In the interest of time, we do not take questions. Our speakers' contact info is posted on the last slide. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact the speaker directly. And all of our recordings are posted on our website underneath the archived webinar tab, as well as on our YouTube channel. And this is just a quick blurb about us. Jennifer Schaus and Associates is based in downtown Washington, D.C., and we help both product and service companies with federal contracting. Our clients are domestic and foreign, and defense contractors and civilians. Our services range from market analysis reports to contract vehicles, including the GSA schedule. We can also help you with proposal writing and post-award contract administration. More information about our services and upcoming events can also be found on our website. So we're going to go ahead and dig into today's presentation, which is to bid or not to bid. And our speaker is Eileen Kent. You can learn more about her background on this slide. Eileen, thanks for joining us today, and I'm going to hand the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Mallory. Hello, everybody. My name is Eileen Kent, and before we go on to the bid or not to bid training here and discussion, you'll find in the next couple slides that we have a lot of questions we're going to be asking ourselves before we bid, because it's going to be really mostly based on the relationship that we've built at the agency level. And you're going to find today that I'm extremely passionate about this topic, because the last thing I want you to do is to spend a lot of time and money on a loser bid. Next slide, please. So to bid or not to bid, that is the $64,000 question. So why would we even need a bid no bid process? Well, I believe that bids can take anywhere between 3 days to a month, sometimes 6 months, and it takes resources and money and team members. And we really want you only from now on to focus your time and effort on winning proposals. Next slide, please. So by having a bid no bid process, what do we mean by saving you time and money? Well, many bids can take time in terms of pre-sales, conversations, capability statements developed, capabilities briefings that you have on site. In fact, I had a client just recently, this morning, have a capabilities briefing over at the VA, and it took us about 3 or 4 months even to get that briefing. So there's a lot of pre-work that happens even just to talk to the customer, and then finally you're talking to them and finding out about their pains and their issues and their needs. You're going to get to know them personally, and that's even before the bid is even hits the streets and we start to put this together. But the actual bid itself, on average, is due in 30 days and can take about 4 people working together for an entire month. So if you take that number of people, 8 hours a day, and let's just average it out to about $100 an hour, we're talking about $64,000 invested in one proposal, one large one that might happen up on FedBizOps. So that's, in some cases, when there's larger businesses and larger opportunities, imagine if it was a 6-month process. So we're talking quite a bit of an investment, and we really need to make sure that this is going to be a winner for us before we even start writing the proposal. Next slide, please. We also need to save your team. You know, I call it, when we write a proposal, ringing the dinner bell. We have an opportunity. It's perfect for us. Ding, 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 ding. Everybody gather around. We're going to work on this for the next 30 days. Well, your team many times are billable and they're working all day. So they're going to have to put in their weekends and evenings. They're going to be away from their families, their friends. They're going to miss family events. They're going to be investing in this proposal process too. And if this is a blind bid where you don't know anything and you don't know anything about the opportunity and you're guessing, you're asking your team to invest all their personal time in this. So you need to only ring that dinner bell when it's truly an opportunity to win, because they're investing their time, their efforts, their family time, and their heart and their soul into this, especially the technical side of proposals. So we want to go through the bid no bid process because we want to save your team from answering the dinner bell that's not quite appropriate. Save them from writing a proposal. It's demoralizing if you lose, if you get them involved. So we only want to get them involved when there's a winner. Next slide, please. So we have a phrase now, and I'm hoping that you take this phrase, write less proposals, win more. Take this and put it on your business board in the office. That's going to be your new goal. We need to write less proposals so that the team can focus only on the winners. When we focus on less proposals, then we do a better job. It's more accurate. You answer the mail, you answer the questions properly. The team isn't dealing with a lot of overload. So when you write less proposals, it doesn't mean that you're not going to ever win. You're only going to write ones that you know you have relationships with. You're only going to plunk down your time, energy, money on those that are much more a sure bet than just a random blind bid that you see on FedBizOps that you say, this is perfect for us. Before we flip to the next slide, I have a story. I have a client that was in one of my classes, and he raised his hand. He said, boy, oh boy, did I learn my lesson. I really love to write proposals. The first year I wrote 135 proposal responses. Can you even imagine? I asked him, how many did you win? He said 0. And he said, the next year I wrote 15. And I said, how many did you win? He said 5. And the year after that, I wrote 5 proposals and I won 3. Get your win rate up by writing less proposals. Next slide, please. So we're going to start throwing a series of questions that you want to really circle up the team. We want the owner or the manager of the company that's investing in this proposal effort. We want the salesperson, the project manager, and the proposal writer all together in one room. This might be you talking to all your different sides of yourself if you're the only one at your company handling all of this. But we really need to ask these questions as a team. Who's the contracting officer and what are their specific protocols? I always like to ask my team, have we ever written a proposal for them before? What are their nitpicks? What are their specific protocols? What have they told us in the past to watch out for? Who's the end user? What I mean by end user, who is, if you're selling training, who's the training manager? If you're selling IT, who's the CIO, the project manager, the program manager? If you're selling something to facilities, who's engineering? Who's the facility manager? What is it that they want? Who do they like? What's their perceived solution to this problem? Have they talked to us about it? What are their preferred methods of buying? Are they going to be utilizing the contract vehicle that we have? Is it going to be going through GSA Schedule E-Buy? Or is it going to go through some GWAC that we don't know anything about and we don't have any teaming partners to catch it for us? So do we even have the contract vehicles they're using? Which incumbent are they going to be using? You know, one time I was calling on an agency and I said, so who do you like to use? And they said, oh, the usual suspects. So what did that mean? I had to go over to the public database to find out who they're doing the most business with and seeing what kind of projects they're working on. We need to identify who the incumbent is and also get in there early enough to see what the customer thinks of them. Maybe the customer is just had it with them and wants to unseat them. Or maybe they're a small company, 8A, service disabled vet, some other small company. Maybe they graduated from those programs. Maybe they became a big company. They're the incumbent. Maybe they need a partner like you to run their business through, or are they using another partner? So who's the incumbent and who does the customer use the most? So what do we know about that customer? Next slide, please. Do we know what they want, and do we have it? So what are the specs? Now, if you're reading the proposal for the first time when it's been published on Fed BizOps or at eBuy or through the GWAC, you're looking at the task order. Well, you didn't write it, did you? Well, who did? Did the end user write it? Did an incumbent put it together for them? Did we write it for them? Are they asking for name brand or equivalent? Typically, they're going to choose the name brand, but they're saying equivalent because they have to. So can we actually perform all the work that they're asking for? And do we meet the best values, the evaluation criteria? And I always like to go straight over to the past performance, because if they're describing a past performance that I didn't have or I don't have or I never talked to them about, they probably lean that past performance towards somebody. So is it ours that we're able to fit perfectly? Next slide, please. So who is the incumbent? Does the customer know, trust, and love them? What contracting vehicles and set-asides does that incumbent have, and can they bid on this? If they can't, do they have a teaming partner who can? Could that possibly be you? Also, who else is coming to the table? Who are the other usual suspects in your industry that's going to be swooping in on this opportunity? Who else is on that contract vehicle that can bid on that opportunity? Next slide, please. So when did you hear about this opportunity? The earlier the better. Let's say it's not out yet for about 3 or 4 months. You still have time to gather intel, talk to the client, because before the bid hits the streets, you are allowed to talk to them. That is, if they're willing to talk to you. So if we still have time to prepare, then we might still have time to consider going after this bid, to fill in the holes, to find out about the incumbent and what the customer thinks of them. But if the bid is already out, the gates are closed and they're not going to be able to talk to us. The end users are definitely not going to be able to talk to us. So what if it came out on a Friday and it's due on Monday? Are we going to ring the dinner bell over a weekend with last minute notice to our team if we never even heard this opportunity was coming? So we really need to be smart about this. We also need to consider what kind of resources we're going to need for the bid process. Are you going to need to hire someone like Jennifer to write the proposal, her team? Or maybe you have your internal team that you need to gather, or maybe you have a teaming partner who has a proposal team. You need to get your resources together so that you're ready to prepare for a bid. Some of my clients come to me, they might have their own internal proposal team, but sometimes they like to come to me and say, Eileen, we need a backup proposal team just in case. We get inundated with proposals last minute, and this one's going to be special to us. So be ready with the number of proposal team members you're going to need. Do we need other teaming partners? Maybe there's a hole in the proposal that we can't quite fill. Hopefully we still have time. We know that need is coming, and we can bring in a teaming partner and introduce them to the client. So these are things that we need to be addressing weeks, months, a year before the bid comes out, so that we can properly position ourselves and make sure there's no gaps in our service offering in our proposal. Next slide, please. Does the scope of work meet what we do? Sometimes their scope of work is really, really broad, and it asks for a lot of things that are outside our scope. They've talked to someone about this opportunity. Someone can fulfill all those items. So what we're going to need to do, if we can't fulfill all those items, we need to find other teaming partners. So the concept here is, did we define some of those needs with them? Did we talk about our expertise and our past performance with them? Did we help them with developing the budget? Sometimes those bids, they'll say $500,000 to $1 million. And, you know, pretty much you've got $500,000 to work with. Where are you going to land on that bid? What's their budget? And by the way, are we even going to make money on this? So these are questions you need to ask yourself way before the bid process, so that you don't suddenly realize at the end of the proposal, when you get out your calculator and you figure out how much money you're going to make, that you're not going to make any money. So we want to make sure we're going after proposals where we're actually going to thrive. Sure, we need to provide pricing that is fair and reasonable, but we also need to be in business at the end of this project too. They want us to be in business as well, standing next to them if we're the vendor that they know, trust, and love. Next slide, please. So do we have the set-asides and the contracting vehicles that they plan to use for this? You know, many people have GSA schedules, but the agencies might not use a GSA schedule to go after this opportunity. It might run through a different contract vehicle in your industry or a specific contract vehicle that they have at their agency that they like to use. So do we have the contract vehicle that they plan to use? And if we don't, do we have a teaming partner that will allow us to borrow a lane on their bridge? I call contract vehicles bridges because it's a little easier visual for myself, is because contract vehicles sit there and do nothing unless you drive tasks across it. So if somebody else owns that bridge, can we borrow a lane? Can we borrow your bridge? Can we work with you? Do we have a teaming partner that can do this? Next slide. So, and then we're going to go back through all of those questions again, and we're going to ask ourselves, are we just answering this with the idea of wishful thinking, with that concept of this is perfect for us, but we can't pass on this? I know my competition's going to it. We're going to do this bid just to practice, or we want to get our foot in the door. Well, I say, why in the world would you go through the hassle and the expense of writing a proposal when you could just get out there and put your foot in their door and actually meet these people and then bid on opportunities that make more sense for you? So let's move on to the next slide, please. So for every bid you pass on, you've saved your company $64K. And some of you are saying, but that means I might lose $540 million because that's what that contract is worth. Well, one of the things you might need to do as well is take a look at what the contract is called. If it's an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract, you're simply, when you win that bid, when you win that opportunity, you might win it with 4 or 5 other companies, and you've just built a bridge to that agency. You didn't win $540 million. You just built a bridge that can handle the weight of that many tasks. And now you're going to need to compete with the other vendors for each and every task and write proposals for that. So every time you write a proposal, I suggest you take 10, 20 minutes with the team to do the bid, no bid process. And let me tell you, if you have a salesperson that you say, we're going to go through a bid, no bid process, and they say, well, I don't have time for that. Oh, really? And you expect us to spend the next 2-3 weeks on this proposal for you? You don't have 10 minutes? The reason why they don't want to spend 10 minutes with you is they don't have this intelligence. So you need a real story. And I like to look at it as, like baking a cake. Looking at a proposal is like baking a cake. When I see a proposal, I see a cake. And I usually ask my team, what's the occasion? How many layers do they want? What are the ingredients? Does the customer have any allergies? These are all questions you would ask if you had to build a proposal around a cake. Where does it need to be delivered? When does it need to be delivered? Who's the actual customer? Is it male or female? What color would that cake be? So I always like to say to my team, I use the cake analogy because I like to look at my team and say, what's the occasion? What's the story? Let's have a bid, no bid decision meeting and really decide whether or not the entire effort of sticking our foot in the door with this proposal makes sense. There's a much easier way to do that. Spending more effort and time on selling to the agency, identifying what agencies buy what you sell, and talking to those agencies and visiting with them and getting to know them and doing smaller tasks to build your past performance with that agency. That time investment makes much more sense than to randomly be writing proposal after proposal after proposal, hoping something will stick. So I hope that you utilize some of these questions and spend time with your team with these questions. And if you get no answer on any of them, it's a no-go. It's a no bid. So let's move on to the next slide. Make sure I've covered everything here in our meeting today. That's it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. There's my phone number and my email address. And I'm just going to throw it back to Mallory and thank Jennifer Schaus and Associates for having me here today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eileen. That was a lot of great information, and just thanks again for sharing your time with us today. And thank you for everybody who joined us. And like Eileen said, if you have any questions for her, please contact her directly with the information you see on your screen. Next week, we are covering DFARS, which is the Contractor Performance Assessment Report. And this concludes our webinar. Thank you so much, everybody.